Imagine this. You meet someone for the very first time, a complete stranger. And yet there's this immediate, deep, almost inexplicable connection.
Yeah.
It feels profound, like you've known them forever, maybe even like family.
Yeah.
What if that feeling wasn't just, coincidence, but rooted in something stretching back not just years, but across countless lifetimes?
It's a feeling a lot of people report, actually. That instant click, that sense of deep familiarity with someone you've literally just met. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that deep, almost uncanny bond is right at the heart of a really fascinating story we're diving into today.
Okay.
We're pulling this from ancient commentaries on the Dhammapada, focusing on an account that came about because the Buddha's monks back in the town of Saketa had some very specific, well, very curious questions.
Right. So our mission here really is to unpack this incredible narrative. It kicks off with what seems like a pretty ordinary meeting, but it quickly opens up these profound insights into things like karmic connections, the path to liberation, and how these incredibly deep relationships can, well, show up across vast stretches of time.
Okay, let's get into it. So the scene is set in this town, Saketa. The Buddha is arriving for his daily alms round, walking with a big group of his monks.
Oh, yeah, a large following. And as they reach the city gate, this elderly Brahmin man, just a local resident, happens to be leaving the city right then.
Okay.
He spots the Buddha, and according to the account, something pretty remarkable happens, like instantly. He goes right up to the Buddha and just prostrates himself on the ground.
And it wasn't just a quick bow, was it? The commentary mentions he actually, grabs hold of the Buddha's ankles.
Yeah, firmly takes hold of his ankles, and then he addresses the Buddha with this incredibly intimate term, tata, which is, it's like calling him son.
Wow. So he's speaking to the Buddha like he's his actual child.
Totally. Expressing concern, asking, son, why haven't you come to see us for so long? Shouldn't sons take care of their elderly parents? I mean, he says, I've seen you now, but please, you've got to come home and visit your mother too.
Wow, that's pretty bold. And the Buddha, what does he do? Does he go?
Yes, the Buddha, along with all the monks, he just accompanies the Brahmin back to his home.
Okay.
And they're welcomed in very warmly, given seats.
And then his wife arrives, the Brahmini. What's her reaction? Is it similar?
It's identical. It's like a mirror image of her husband's reaction. She also immediately prostrates at the Buddha's feet, calls him son, asks where he's been all this time, and, repeats the same thing about sons looking after their elderly parents.
This is getting kind of wild. Does she stop there?
No, she doesn't. The account says she then calls her own children, who would be technically the Buddha's siblings in this life, and tells them, come pay homage to your elder brother.
Okay, hold on. So this couple, they must have known who the Buddha's actual famous parents were, right?
Mm-hmm.
King Suddhodana and Queen Mahamaya.
Oh, almost certainly. He was famous.
But despite that, they're completely convinced this is their son, even telling their other kids to treat him like an older brother.
Exactly. The commentary describes them as just being overjoyed. They serve the Buddha and all the monks with just incredible enthusiasm and devotion. And right there, in that moment of happiness, they make this offer of continuous alms at their home.
So basically offering to feed him and the monks every single day.
Yeah. But the Buddha doesn't accept that kind of arrangement.
Right. That's not the practice. Buddhas don't accept continuous alms in one single plate.
Exactly. So he gently explains this. And they quickly come up with an alternative plan. They ask the Buddha, okay, well, could you send anyone who wants to invite you for alms to our house instead? We'll provide the meal for them to offer.
That's quite a workaround. So did that actually happen? How did it work out?
It worked exactly like that, according to the commentary. Whenever someone came to invite the Buddha for a meal, he'd tell them, go inform the Brahmin couple. And this meant the Brahmin ended up bringing food from their home to the Buddha's dwelling place pretty much daily. And if the Buddha didn't have any other invitation on a particular day, he'd go and eat at the Brahmin's home.
So this really close connection, it wasn't just a one-off thing at the gate. It became a daily interaction.
Absolutely. And the story notes that during this whole time, the Brahmin and Brahmini were constantly giving offerings and, maybe more importantly, they were listening really attentively to the Dhamma talks the Buddha was giving.
And that had a real impact on them spiritually, right?
A profound impact. This sustained devotion and engagement with the teachings. Well, the commentary states that during this period, they actually attained the fruit of non-returning anāgami.
Okay, hang on. Non-returning. What exactly does that mean for them, spiritually speaking, at this point?
Well, Reaching the state of anāgāmi means they basically cut through the main fetters, the chains that bind beings to rebirth in the lower realms, like the human world or animal realms. They were guaranteed not to be reborn in the sensory world again. If they were reborn at all before final nibbana, it would be in a very high, pure realm, and from there they'd reach liberation. It's a very, very advanced stage on the path.
That's really significant. Now, you can imagine all this closeness, the daily meals, the sun talk. It didn't go unnoticed by the monks.
Oh, absolutely not. Picture the discussions in the Dhamma hall. They knew perfectly well the Buddha's actual parents were the king and queen. They must have been completely baffled.
Right. Here's this elderly couple who surely must know the facts, insisting the Buddha is our son. And maybe even more confusing for them, why was the Buddha just allowing it? Going along with it?
Exactly. They just had to ask him. They needed an explanation for what was going on.
And this is where the real heart of the story comes out, isn't it? So what did the Buddha tell them when they asked why this couple kept calling him son?
The Buddha's answer was super direct. And for the monks, it must have been a total light bulb moment. He just said, monks, both of them are calling their own son, son.
Ah, there it is. So not his son now, in this specific life.
Exactly.
But he was their son across many, many previous lives.
Precisely. And then he laid it all out for them. He recounted this incredible history, detailing the sheer number of past lives where they shared these close family ties. He explained that this specific Brahmin man had been his father for 500 lifetimes.
500 times as his father. Wow.
And that's not all. On top of that, he'd also been his paternal uncle for another 500 lifetimes, and then another 500 lifetimes as a paternal uncle.
Wait, so that's 1,500 lifetimes just as a father or father's brother?
A staggering 1,500 lifetimes. That's the depth of that connection on the father's side, so to speak.
Incredible. What about the Brahmini, his wife?
Same pattern, just as deep. He recounted that she had been his mother for 500 lifetimes, and then his maternal aunt for another 500 lifetimes, and then again another 500 lifetimes as a maternal aunt.
So also 1,500 lifetimes as either his mother or his mother's sister.
Exactly. A total of 1,500 on that side, too.
So the Buddha basically stated, look, I was raised by this man for 1,500 lives, and I was raised by this woman for 1,500 lives. That puts their feeling of him being their son into perspective across a combined 3,000 lifetimes.
It really does. That immense continuous history explains that immediate, overwhelming, and importantly, mutual feeling of family bond they all felt in this life.
Yeah.
It wasn't some random emotional reaction. It was like the deep echo or residue of countless past connections just bursting forth in the present. It really speaks volumes about the power of these karmic ties across unimaginable stretches of time.
That ties in so well with one of the verses the commentary brings up, doesn't it? The one about how you can sometimes feel trust or just click with someone, even if you never met them before in this life.
Right.
If your mind just feels settled and pleased with them. This story gives such a powerful reason for why that feeling can be so intense. It might actually be rooted in these, unseen past relationships.
It really does. And the commentary actually includes another key verse right around here talking about where love comes from. It says love arises from one of two things, either previous association, like these past lives, or present help. Present help. Yeah, like kindness or support shown in this current life. The verse uses this beautiful image of a lotus flower in water.
Oh, wow.
The lotus grows both from the water it sits in and also from the mud underneath it. Both are needed.
That's a lovely analogy. Really insightful.
And it fits this story just perfectly, doesn't it? The Brahmin couple's profound love and connection to the Buddha wasn't only because of those 3,000 lifetimes of previous association. That was the foundation, sure.
Wow.
But it was also intensely alive and strengthened by their actions, now their devoted care, their continuous offerings, their listening to the Dhamma in this present life. That's the present help. The bond was real and vibrant in the moment, reinforced by their actions, but built on that unbelievably vast history.
So because of this deep connection and the whole meal arrangement, the Buddha stayed nearby, relying on this family for support. And the commentary says he stayed for how long exactly?
For 3 months, exactly, relying on that family.
Okay. And at the end of those 3 months, something hugely significant happened for the Brahmin and the Brahmini themselves, right?
Yes, absolutely pivotal. Through all that sustained devotion, their practice, listening to the Dhamma, they reached the ultimate goal. They both realized arahantship.
Arahantship.
And with that final realization, they attained parinirvana. They passed away.
Okay, let's pause there. Arahantship and parinirvana. Just remind us what that represents in the Buddhist understanding.
Right. Arahantship is the peak. It's the highest state of spiritual realization, complete freedom from suffering, from craving, from the whole cycle of rebirth. And parinirvana is the final passing away of an arahant.
So the physical body ends.
The physical body ceases, yes, but crucially, there's no more rebirth.
Right.
No more coming back. They've completely extinguished the causes for continued existence in the cycle. They reached the finish line, The goal they might have been working towards, maybe unknowingly, across all those 3,000 lifetimes of connection.
Wow. That's the end of the journey in the most profound way possible. So they passed away. What was the reaction? The commentary describes the funeral, right?
Yes, it says the people performed a great ceremony for them. They placed the couple together in a single sort of decorated structure, like a gabled house or shrine,
Okay.
and carried them out in procession from the cremation.
And the Buddha himself attended.
He did, accompanied by 500 monks. He went with the procession all the way to the cremation ground.
And what was the feeling among the public? The commentary notes something quite touching about that.
Yeah, it says a huge crowd came out, and the thought going around was, it is said the parents of the Buddhas have passed away. So even the wider community really perceived and acknowledged that unique parent-like bond they shared with the Buddha in this lifetime. It was that obvious to everyone.
That's really something. So at the cremation ground, the Buddha goes into a nearby hall while the ceremony is happening.
Yes, he enters and stands in a hall nearby, and people naturally come up to him, paying homage and, trying to offer comfort, saying things like, Bhante, venerable sir, please don't grieve that your parents have passed away.
Oh, they're treating him like a bereaved son.
Exactly. And the Buddha, the text says, he perceives the state of mind of the assembly. He doesn't, reject their kind words, but he sees it as a perfect moment. A teaching moment.
Okay.
He uses their focus on death and parting to teach a fundamental Dhamma truth. He recites a relevant discourse, the Jara Sutta, the discourse on aging.
The discourse on aging, what's the essence of that?
The core verse he shared, especially poignant then, is pretty stark, really. It goes, indeed, short is this life. One dies even within 100 years. And if someone lives beyond that, that one dies indeed by old age.
Oof. Yeah, that's a powerful universal reminder of just how fragile and short worldly life is, especially hearing that at a cremation.
Exactly. It just underscored the unavoidable reality of mortality that touches absolutely everyone, no exceptions. And the commentary notes the impact, it says, at the end of this short discourse. A huge number, 84,000 beings, actually attain some level of realization of the Dhamma.
84,000. Wow. Just from that verse and that moment.
Shows the power of the right teaching at the right time, delivered by the Buddha.
Okay, so the Buddha used the passing of this couple, who everyone saw as his parents, to teach about mortality. But what about the monks? They still had that question nagging them, didn't they? About where this couple actually went after death.
That's right.
Because they still didn't know the couple were arahants, right?
Exactly. Despite the public perception and the general teaching on aging he just gave, the monks were still focused on the specific spiritual outcome for this couple. So they asked him directly, Bhante, what is their next destination? Where were they reborn?
And this is where the teaching takes another step, moving from general mortality to the nature of ultimate liberation.
Precisely. The Buddha then explained the state of those who have actually finished the path. He stated that for aseka munis, which is a term for arahants, those who have completed their training, no more learning needed.
Aseka, no more training.
Okay. For them, he said, there is no next destination. There's no further rebirth. They're done with the cycle.
They've gone beyond all that.
Totally beyond. He explained that such individuals reach the akutta, the hana, the immutable state, the undying.
The immutable, the undying. That sounds very much like Nibbana itself.
It is Nibbana. He stated they reached the great Nibbana itself, and then he recited a final verse to kind of encapsulate this ultimate state.
What was that verse?
It goes, those munis who do no harm, always restrained in body, they go to the immutable state, akutta pada, having gone where they do not sorrow.
Okay, let's quickly break that down because the commentary gives some pointers. Munis here refers to.
Right. In this specific context, munis means these aseka munis, the arahants, who've perfected the practice and reached the goal.
And restrained in body. Does that just mean physically?
The commentary clarifies that by body here is just sort of a figure of speech representing the whole. It really means they are restrained through all three doors of action, body, speech, and mind. Their actions, words, and thoughts are completely pure, completely harmless.
Got it. And the immutable state, akuti-pada.
Immutable means eternal, permanent, unchanging. And state, or pada, refers to an unshakable place or state. So it's pointing directly to nibbana, which is the only truly permanent, eternal, unshakable reality, completely unlike the constantly changing conditioned world.
Okay. So having gone where they do not sorrow.
That means having reached that state, nibbana, they are utterly free from all forms of sorrow, suffering, grief, torment. It's the complete cessation of dukkha, of dissatisfaction, total liberation.
That's the ultimate contrast, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The first teaching he gave at the cremation ground was about the stark reality of aging and death within this world of sorrow.
Mm.
And the second teaching points to the possibility, the reality for arahants, of reaching a state entirely beyond death and sorrow.
It is a complete transcendence. And the commentary notes that at the end of this second discourse, focusing on nibbana, many other beings also gain insight, attaining the fruits of stream entry or other stages along the path. They were inspired by understanding this ultimate freedom.
So this deep dive, wow, it started with this seemingly very strange encounter at a city gate.
Yeah.
And it just unfolded into this incredible story. Deep karmic connection spanning 3,000 lifetimes. It led to this couple achieving the absolute highest spiritual realization, arahantship and parinirvana. And then, even through their passing, the Buddha delivered these incredibly powerful teachings, first on the truth of worldly mortality, and then on the ultimate freedom from all sorrow found in nibbana.
It's a truly rich narrative, isn't it? It shows how these profound relationships can echo across immense time, but also how dedicated practice, right here and now, can lead to complete liberation from that whole cycle of suffering.
It really is. And it definitely leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How might understanding this possibility, connections across lifetimes, the potential to reach a state beyond all death and sorrow, how might that change the way you look at the people you meet every day, or maybe even the challenges you face in your own life?